The room was full of noise, until one simple question changed everything. A host looked at Keanu Reeves and asked, "Who do you love?" No jokes. No smiles. Keanu paused, and the entire room went silent. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because the truth he was about to share was heavier than anyone expected. This wasn't a celebrity moment. This was a human moment, and it left everyone speechless. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now, let's dive into what really happened. The room was alive just seconds before it happened. Soft laughter echoed across the studio. Cameras clicked. The host smiled. It was the kind of polished, comfortable atmosphere people expect during celebrity interviews. Light, controlled, predictable. Everything felt normal, safe, almost routine. And then, without warning, a simple question cut through the noise. During a public interview, Keanu Reeves was asked something that sounded harmless on the surface. Who do you love? No dramatic build-up. No sensational tone. Just a quiet question, spoken as if it required a quick, effortless answer. There were no explosions. No shocking visuals. No tension in the room, at least not at first. But what happened next changed everything. Keanu didn't respond immediately. He didn't smile for the cameras. He didn't laugh it off or redirect the question the way so many celebrities do. Instead, he paused. It wasn't an awkward pause. It was a meaningful one. His expression softened. His eyes shifted slightly, as if the question had traveled past the lights, past the microphones, and straight into a private place most people never get to see. His posture relaxed, but his presence grew heavier, more grounded. And slowly, the room began to change. The background noise faded. Conversations stopped. Even the cameras seemed quieter. What had once been a lively studio became completely still, as if everyone instinctively understood that this was no longer just an interview. People had expected a name, a partner, a safe, polished answer wrapped in charm. But what they didn't realize was that this question wasn't really about romance at all. It was about memory. It was about love shaped by time. It was about a life touched by loss, endurance, and quiet strength. In that pause, Keanu wasn't searching for words. He was honoring something deeper. And in doing so, he reminded everyone in the room of a rare truth. Some questions don't demand quick answers. Some questions ask us to feel before we speak. That single moment of silence carried more weight than any rehearsed response ever could. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing a person can say is nothing at all. To truly understand the silence that followed that question, you first need to understand the life that shaped it. Long before fame, before blockbuster films and red carpet premieres, Keanu Reeves grew up in a world that was anything but stable. His childhood was marked by constant change. His family moved frequently, and that sense of uncertainty followed him for years. When his father left at a young age, Keanu learned early that life could shift without warning. There was no safety net. No steady foundation. Just adaptation. As he grew older, he found purpose in acting, but even success didn't erase the quiet weight he carried. Then, in the late 1990s, his life took a hopeful turn. Keanu fell deeply in love. For a moment, everything felt aligned. He and his partner were expecting a child, and the future finally seemed bright, full of promise and meaning. But life had other plans. Tragedy arrived without mercy. Their baby was lost before birth, a moment that shattered what had been built with hope. And just months later, another devastating loss followed when his partner died in a car accident. Two heartbreaking moments, so close together, that most people would never fully recover from them. Two losses. One after the other. For many, pain like that becomes a wall. It hardens the heart. It closes people off from the world. But Keanu's response was different. He didn't lash out. He didn't grow resentful. He didn't turn his grief into bitterness. Instead, he turned inward. Keanu chose silence, not as avoidance, but as protection. He carried his grief privately, away from cameras and headlines, allowing himself the space to feel without explanation or performance. Over time, that pain transformed into something else, empathy. He became more patient, more grounded, more aware of how fragile life truly is. That's why, years later, when he was asked, "Who do you love?" the question wasn't simple. It wasn't about naming someone. It wasn't about romance or public perception. It was about everything he had lost, and everything he still chose to feel. Because when you've known that kind of pain, love stops being casual. It becomes sacred. When Keanu Reeves finally spoke, his voice was steady and calm. There were no theatrics. No dramatic build-up. No carefully rehearsed lines meant to impress an audience. Just honesty. He didn't offer the kind of answer people were expecting. There was no mention of a romantic partner, no attempt to redirect attention, no playful deflection to lighten the mood. He wasn't performing for the cameras. He wasn't shaping a headline. Instead, he spoke about love as something far bigger than labels or relationships. He talked about love as connection, as memory, as presence. He spoke about the people who have mattered in his life, friends who stood by him, those who shaped him, and even those he had lost but never stopped carrying with him. His words suggested that love doesn't disappear when someone is gone. It changes form, but it stays. And in that moment, the room truly went silent. Not because the answer was shocking, but because it was deeply human. People realized they weren't listening to a famous actor anymore. They weren't watching a public figure managing an image. They were listening to a man who had lived through profound pain and still chose to keep his heart open. There was no sadness in his tone. No anger. No regret. Only acceptance. That calm acceptance carried weight. It showed a kind of strength that doesn't demand attention. A strength built not on ego, but on understanding. In a world where so many people hide behind appearances, his answer felt almost unsettling in its sincerity. It was raw. It was real. And it wasn't trying to be anything else. That honesty cut through the noise of celebrity culture. It reminded everyone present that love isn't about being seen or validated. It's about how you carry others with you, even when life takes unexpected turns. And that's why his answer changed the room. Because for a brief moment, the lights, the cameras, and the expectations disappeared. What remained was something rare, a quiet truth, spoken without fear. And that kind of truth always leaves an impact. Keanu Reeves doesn't live like most celebrities, and that moment made it clear why. In an industry built on attention, excess, and constant self-promotion, Keanu has always moved differently. He's been seen riding public transportation, sitting quietly among strangers, and living without the extravagant displays of wealth that often come with fame. Despite earning immense success, he avoids luxury not out of image, but out of intention. And that interview moment helped people finally understand the reason behind it. Keanu understands something many people don't learn until much later in life, often after loss or hardship forces the lesson into focus. Love isn't about possession, it's about presence. He doesn't chase attention because he knows how fragile life truly is. When you've experienced sudden loss, you stop trying to control everything. You stop clinging. You learn to appreciate what's here, while it's here. He doesn't boast about achievements because he knows how quickly circumstances can change. Success, like life, is temporary. And once you understand that, there's no need to shout about what you have. When Keanu speaks about love, it doesn't sound rehearsed or symbolic. It sounds lived. His words come from experience, not performance. That authenticity is rare, especially in a world where so much is curated for applause. That's why people listen when he speaks. In a culture full of noise, his quiet honesty feels almost revolutionary. He doesn't demand space. He creates it. He doesn't ask to be admired. He simply exists as he is. And perhaps most importantly, his pain didn't turn him into someone hardened or distant. It didn't close him off from the world. Instead, it softened him. It made him more patient, more compassionate, more aware of the struggles others carry silently. Gentleness, today, is often mistaken for weakness. But in truth, it's one of the strongest responses to suffering. Keanu's life reflects that truth. He chose empathy over bitterness, humility over ego, and presence over performance. And that choice is exactly why his words resonate so deeply. Because people don't just hear what he says. They feel where it comes from. After Keanu Reeves finished speaking, something rare happened. No one rushed to fill the space. There were no follow-up jokes. No quick comments to ease the moment. No nervous laughter to break the tension. Just silence. But it wasn't the kind of silence that feels awkward or uncomfortable. It was calm. Heavy in a meaningful way. The kind of silence that appears when people realize they've just witnessed something real. Everyone in the room understood it at the same time. They had just seen honesty without filters. In a world where public figures are trained to protect their image, to turn every moment into a headline or a soundbite, Keanu had done the opposite. He hadn't tried to impress. He hadn't tried to control the narrative. He had simply told the truth. And that truth carried weight. Keanu reminded everyone listening that love doesn't always look like fairy tales or dramatic gestures. It doesn't always arrive with applause or attention. Sometimes love is quiet. Sometimes it's remembering the people who are no longer here but still shape who we are. Sometimes love shows up as kindness toward strangers. As patience when no one is watching. As choosing empathy over bitterness, even when life has been unfair. And sometimes, love is simply refusing to let pain erase your humanity. That's why the room went silent. Not because his answer was shocking. Not because it was dramatic. But because it was true. In that moment, no one was thinking about fame or movies or celebrity culture. No one was thinking about red carpets or headlines. For a brief moment, all of that faded away. People were thinking about their own lives. About the people they've loved. About the ones they've lost. About the connections they still hold quietly, without words. That's the power of authenticity. It turns a public moment into a personal one. Sometimes the most powerful answers aren't loud. They don't demand attention. They don't try to be remembered. Sometimes, they simply make everyone stop and listen.